Masechet Menaḥot Daf Memchet Tenor Rabanan Shachat Shnei Chebasim Al Arba Halot. The Braita teaches a case where someone does shechita on 2 sheep that are designated for Shavuot to be connected with, supposed to be 2 loaves of bread. But instead, he brought 4 loaves of bread. He took the kebasim and the 4 loaves of bread and waved them together while the animals were alive. And then he does shechita, and now he has these 4 loaves. This is a problem because 2 of these loaves is all we need, and only 2 of them are going to be connected and get Kiddushat Haguf and connected with the 2 kebasim. The other 2 will have only Kiddushat Damim. But we don't know which 2 are which because we brought all 4 together. So how can he resolve the problem? Moshech shetayim mehen umenifan v'ashar nechalot bepidyon. He'll take 2, any 2 of them, and he will wave them. Remember, you wave them again after shechita, the 2 loaves that are properly designated, together with the parts of the sheep. So those you wave together, and so we'll assume that those are the ones that are Kiddushat Haguf. V'ashar nechalot bepidyon. And the others we also can eat by redeeming their monetary value. Now, which one should we redeem? We don't know which ones are which, but that's okay. We take all 4 together and we take some coins and we say, whichever 2 of these is Kiddusha of not Haguf, only Kiddushat Mammon, that Kiddusha will go into this money. And then those loaves become cholin. So now we're good. We have 2 loaves that are properly designated as the loaves for Aseret, and they're connected to these 2 kebasim, so they can be eaten. That's okay. And the other 2 that are cholin, so those can also be eaten. They're just 2 regular loaves. So even if we don't know which is which, because we brought all 4, but it's okay because whichever 2 were Hashem will decide in that formulation of the pidyon, and that way you can save the kivasim and save all the loaves. Amaru Rabanan kamed Rav Chisda ha la kerebi. The sages said to Rav Chisda, this baraita cannot be the opinion of Rabbi Yehuda Nasi. Why? The problem is that since the Rabbi said that it's the shechita that makes something kadosh, he had a machloket, remember, with Rabbi Elazar and Rabbi Shimon, who said that it's the zirika. The sprinkling is what makes it holy. If you say the sprinkling is what makes the loaves holy, well, according to that, there's no problem here. This is an easy case. Okay, you took you did shechita with 4 loaves. All right, but the loaves do not have kiddushat haguf yet. So just take 2, pick any 2, and those you can redeem for money, and the other 2 you can take, and you will have them in mind when you sprinkle the blood. So that's not a problem. The problem is, according to the B, who says that the shechita is going to connect them. So now, whichever 2 of these 4 are the ones as a Kiddushat Haguf are already Kadosh. And here's the problem. Since he says that the Shechita makes it Kadosh, where is he going to redeem it? That's the problem. Where will he redeem it? Here's the options. Will he take all 4 of these outside of the temple courtyard and redeem it there? But since his pasuk says that this bread is brought before Hashem, that means in the courtyard. And if you take them out of the courtyard, they will become invalid. Whichever 2 are the Kiddushat Haguf ones will become invalid. So you can't take them outside the courtyard. Okay, so I'll leave them in and do the redemption inside. But then you have a problem because if they're inside and then you redeem them, so now as soon as you redeem them, those 2 go from Kiddushat Mammon to Cholin totally. And you're not allowed to bring Cholin into the courtyard. And now, the second you redeem them, you have Cholin in the courtyard, and that's not allowed. You see, according to the Bi Elazar, but Rabbi Shimon, he says they're all just Kiddushat Mammon. That you can take outside the courtyard. So according to him, you'll take all 4 outside the courtyard. You redeem 2 of them, or you just take 2 outside the courtyard, redeem those, and then you're good to go. The other 2, then you can use. So that's no problem. But according to the B, where will you do it? Inside or outside? אמר להו רב חיסדא לעולם כרבי ופריק להו גבאי וחולין ממילא כהוויין. Rav Chisda says, no, this is okay. We can reconcile this according to the B. And where will he do the redemption? Inside. And this is not a problem of bringing chulin into the azara. It's indirect. They're in the azara right now, and that's okay. They're in the azara because they have at least kedushat mamon. And then when you redeem them, you're not moving them at all. They're just sitting there. And so indirectly, by doing the redemption, now they became chulin. Okay, so they're in the azara. They're already there. I didn't bring them in. So the prohibition is to bring it chulin into the azara, not to have it if it's already there, just for it now to become chulin. Okay, then you'll take it out after. Amar le Ravina le Rav Asher, v'hatanya kishu podan en podan ela bachus. Ravina es Rav Asher. There's another braita that says in the same case, when you do redemption, you should do the redemption outside of the courtyard. But you just said, according to the B, you can't bring them outside the courtyard because two of them are holy. Havadai Rabbi Elazar Rabbi Shimon hi the B ha'ifselu lehu beyoseh. Okay, this baraita is definitely not like the B, but rather this baraita would accord with the opinion of Rabbi Elazar Rabbi Shimon, who says that none of them have kedushat haguf yet because you only did shechita and not zerika. So those, yes, you could take them outside and do the pidyon outside. If it was Rabbi, then you would not be able to take them out because otherwise they would become invalid. Amar le Rav Acha beret Rava le Rav Asher, lema teheveti upte to Rabbi Yochanan. Rav Acha, the son of Rava, tells Rav Asher, that braita that we just taught about the case of the 4 loaves, that seems to be a refutation of the opinion of Rabbi Yochanan in the following statement. Meha de itmar. Toda sheshechata al shemonim chalot, Chizkiah amar kadeshu 40 mitoch shemonim. Rabbi Yochanan amar lo kadeshu 40 mitoch shemonim. Here, this, if you have a case, it's similar to the case of the Shavuot, where you have too many loaves. Here you have a korban todah. Korban todah is supposed to have 40 loaves with it. You did shechita, and there were 80 loaves there. What do we do now? Chizkiah said 40 of the 80 will be kadosh. So this opinion of Chizkiah, this is in accordance with the braita above, where above we also said that 2 out of the 4 will become kadosh. But Rabbi Yochanan says no, not even 40. None of the loaves become holy. And not even 40 of them. Now, according to this, Rabbi Yochanan, he said before, the Braita said before that 2 of the 4 become holy. Here, Rabbi Yochanan says none of the 80 become holy. So this seems to be a contradiction. We answer, V'lav mi'itmar Allah, amar Rabbi Zera, hakol modim echad amar li kadeshu 40 mitoch shemonim dekadsha, hachanamed amar li kadeshu tarte mitoch 4. But didn't we discuss this case, and we said about it, that Rabbi Zera explained that everybody agrees, Rabbi Yochanan and Chizkiah will agree that if he said, let 40 of the 80 become holy, then even Rabbi Yochanan would agree that 40 become holy. None of them become holy only if you said nothing. So now you did shechita on the korban todah. There's 80 loaves. Well, which of the 80 are going to be holy? So none of them become holy because who's to decide this one and not that one? But if you say 40 of the 80, okay, so then now he limited his statement to 40 of the 80, then 40 of them will in fact be holy. So because Rabbi Yochanan said that, we can assume that the Baraita also was a case where he had the 2 kevasim and he had the 4 loaves. And he had in mind that 2 of these loaves, or he said, 2 out of these 4 loaves will become holy. And in that case, again, Rabbi Yochanan will agree that in fact 2 become holy. It's not determined which 2 it is, so they have to go through that process, but we can reconcile this with Rabbi Yochanan. Taneh Rabbi Chanina Tirata, Kamed Rabbi Yochanan. Rabbi Chanina Tirata presented the following baraita in front of Rabbi Yochanan. Shachat 4 kebasim al shete chalot, moshech shenai mehen vezorek taman shelo lishman. Here you have the case like before, but switched around. Now we have, instead of 2 kebasim, we have 4 kebasim and 2 halot. Now we have too many kebasim. What are we going to do? So you take pick 2 of the kebasim, any 2, and sprinkle, you did shechita on all of them. Okay, but 2 of them are connected to the chalot. 2 of them are not connected to the chalot. But it's not determined which is which. So you take 2 of them and you sprinkle their blood, having in mind a different type of korban. And we said, kipsei aseret that you have in mind, shelo lishma, will become a regular shilamim. So those 2 will become a regular shilamim, and then the 2 that are left, those will be the ones that are designated with the halot. Potentially, any 2 of these 4 could be designated with the halot because we did it all together. But you got to get 2 of them out of the way, and you can get 2 of them out of the way by making it shelo lishma. And then if it's shelo lishman, so it's a shilamim. Okay, those weren't designated, so then the other 2 will be designated, and now you're good. Sheimi atam omer kach, hifsadeta et achronim. Now you have to make sure to do it in this order, because if you first sprinkle 2 of them lishman, so those 2 now will be the ones designated with the halot, but that's all you need. And then the other 2 will be dehoyim. They'll be rejected. And once they're rejected, so now you cannot bring them at all, not even shelo lishma. And therefore, you make sure to do it in this order. Otherwise, the other 2 will have to just be destroyed. You'll have to just wait till the next day and burn them. You will not be able to continue to sacrifice them. You can only do it at first, the first 2 lishma, because right now they're all valid. They all could be, potentially. So I bring one, and I'm like, I'm making believe. I'm kind of winking. Oh, this is the one. Yeah, I'm going to bring it lishma. Oh, I brought it shelo lishma. Oh, well, okay, the shalamim. So it's okay. So that I got that one. At least we could eat the meat of the first one, the second one. And then 2 more. Okay, then the last 2. I can make it lishma. Amar lo Rabbi Yochanan, v'chi omer lo adam le'adam amod v'chata b'shvil shetizkeh. Rabbi Yochanan asked Rabbi Chanina tirata about this teaching. He says, can you tell a person, go and make a sin so that you can gain something afterwards? Can you use a sin as a means to an end? Now, it's true, in the end it'll be better because now you have all 4. First of all, you get more meat, so it's actually a physical benefit, but also it's a holy animal, and you don't have to go and throw it out. You can make it a valid korban. However, do the means justify the ends? Can you do that? Can you go tell someone, take this animal that's supposed to be for Shavuot, and have in mind shelo lishma? You're not supposed to sprinkle blood of an animal that's supposed to be one thing and you do it for another. Okay, it happens. If it happens, all right, we have rules how to deal with that. Do you tell someone on purpose, take the first 2 and sprinkle them as a shilamim so that we can benefit and have all 4 of them? V'hatanan. Look at this Mishnah in Masechet Zevachim, where we see that we do not do this, at least according to Chachamim. Here's a case of evrei chata shinit arabu be'ebrei ola. We have the parts of a korban chatat that the kohanim are supposed to eat. And they got mixed up with the parts of a korban olah, where all the parts are supposed to be burned. They're all mixed together. We don't know which should be burnt, which we should eat. Can't eat them. So what are we going to do? Rabbi Eliezer omer, yitenu lema'ala v'ro'aniyat besad chatat lema'ala ki'ilu hi asim. Rabbi Eliezer says, I want to try to save as much as I can. So I'm going to burn all of them on top of the mizbeach. And I will consider the meat of the korban chatat to be like fuel, like wood, and that it's burning, and that the fire that is produced by that will burn everything else, will burn the olah, and that way I don't have to throw out the ebrei olah. I can burn ebrei olah, whichever they are. I don't know which ones they are, but Hashem knows which ones they are, and so the limbs of the olah will be burnt on the mizbeach properly. Okay, I lose out eating the korban chatat, but there's no way I could tell, so I wouldn't be able to eat them anyway. Now it is a bit of a disgrace to take these parts of the chatat and use them as fuel, but better to do a sin, a little sin, and in the end have a tizkeh. So actually, Rabbi Eliezer is an example of where we do say amod v'chata b'shvil shetizkeh. But the question is from Chachamim, because Rabbi Eliezer is only a minority opinion. Chachamim omnim teubar suratan v'yesu lebet haserefa. Chachamim say, take all of these limbs and wait till their form becomes bad, meaning wait till the next day until they're notad, and then go burn them out. Not on the mizbeach, burn them in the place where you burn things that are invalid. So Chamim say, no, you do not do a sin with the sin offering parts and use them as fuel. We just wait it out, and even though that means we're going to lose everything, you have to. What can you do? You can't actively do something wrong in order to have a gain. So Rabbi Yochanan is asking, how could you say that halacha when this Mishnah says otherwise? Amai lema amod vechata bishvil shetiskeh. Now Rabbi Yochanan's question: why do Chachamim say that? Why don't we tell him go and sin so that you can benefit and save the olah offerings? At least they'll be on the mizbeach. So we don't say that. We have an answer. Amod vechata bechatat bishvil shetiskeh bechatat amrinan. Amod vechata bechatat bishvil shetiskeh beolah lo amrinan. Bichanina tirata explains that we do say sin with a chatat if it will help the chatat itself. In other words, if it's going to help the same type of item, then we do. So in this case, the case that Rabbi Chanina presented, that was a case where you have 4 sheep. Okay, you have 4 things. They're all the same kind. And they're all designated to be for Shavuot. So now, if you take 2 of them and you do it Shelo Lishman, which is a sin, you can save the other 2. So yes, when it's all the same type, all within the same category, then we do say, do something wrong with part of them so you can save the other part. So that I stand by. That Mishnah is talking about a different case, because there would you tell a person sin with a chatat so you can save the olah? No, that we don't say. If it's 2 different categories, then you cannot sacrifice one category for the other. But if it's all the same category, then we do say sin so that you can get benefit from the other part of it. Now Rabbi Yochanan asks, wait, is that true? That when it's within one category, we do say, go and sin, and so that you can benefit? Here's another challenge. V'hatanya, kibsei aseret sheshechatan shelo lishman, or sheshechatan, ben lifnei zemanan, ben lachar zemanan, hadam yizarek, v'basar ye'achel. Braita teaches that if you have the sheep of an aseret, and you did shechita not for their sake, or you did shechita on them before the time, before Shavuot, or after the time, after Shavuot. It can't be used for Shavuot in any of these cases. What are you going to do with them? Okay, so sprinkle the blood, and it can be eaten. Sprinkle the blood. Why? Because it's shelo lishman. Okay, you did it. You did the shechita shelo lishman, so now they'll become a shelamim. Or if it was the wrong day, the day before or day after, that's okay, because you will, since it's not going to be a kibseh aseret, but it will still be a shelamim. So you did the shechita for the wrong sake, but it can still default to a shelamim, and go ahead and do the zirika of the blood. Okay, that's a simple case. Here is where the question comes from. V'im hayta Shabbat lo yizrok, v'im zarak kursa laktir emurin la'erev. If this happened on Shabbat, it was Shabbat was before or after Shavuot, or if Shavuot can fall out on Shabbat, then and so he did a Shelo Lishman on Shabbat. Now on Shabbat you cannot offer it. Why? Because on Shabbat you're only allowed to offer something that has to be done on that day, like a Korban Tamid or Musaf of Shabbat. If it's a holiday on Shabbat, you could do the Musafim, anything that has to be done on that day. But here you're turning it into a regular Shelamim. A regular Shelamim is not a special Korban that has to be done on that day. And therefore, if it's Shabbat, do not do the Zirika. You did the Shechita, but you had the Shechita, you did Shelo Lishman. You did it with the wrong intention. Okay, so now it won't be able to be for Shavuot. Now it's going to be just a Shelamim. You know what? Just leave it alone. Do not sprinkle the blood. It will become invalid. But b'di'avad, if you did Zirika, then it's acceptable, and you can burn the inside parts, not on Shabbat, because you can't burn this on Shabbat. Rather, you wait till after Shabbat. So, b'di'avad, you can, if you sprinkled it, it's okay. Now, here's the question. Ve'amai, lema amod ve'hata bishvil shetiskeh. Why does this baraita say, lecha techila, do not sprinkle it on Shabbat, and then it's going to go to waste? This whole thing will become invalid. By the nighttime, you won't be able to sprinkle it anymore. Why not say, go ahead and sin and sprinkle it on Shabbat so that you can gain by then at that night you can burn the rest of it and then you can eat the meat. You can eat the meat that night. So why don't we say that you can do that? And here you're doing it. It's the same item. This very item we want to save the whole thing. So we'll take part of it, the blood, and sprinkle it so that we could save the rest of it. So, but we don't say that here. We do not apply the principle of sin so that you can benefit. Okay, Rabbi Chanina Tirata has an answer. Amod hata b'Shabbat kedesh tizkeh b'Shabbat amrinan. Amod hata b'Shabbat kedesh tizkeh b'chol amrinan. No, this case is a case actually of two different categories because of the timing. It's true, it's all from one korban, but look at the timing. If it was all on Shabbat and you say, listen, you have to violate, it's a very relatively small violation, you're just sprinkling the blood. The shechita was already done, so you're not doing a major deoraita of burning something or shechita. So you're just sprinkling the blood. It's okay, but still it's not proper. So you sin on Shabbat. We would do that if it was benefiting on Shabbat and we could eat the meat on Shabbat itself. Okay, then yes. But here we cannot eat it. We won't be able to eat on Shabbat because you can't cook it on Shabbat. And therefore, you're going to tell me, oh, go sprinkle it on Shabbat. You have to do sprinkling during the day. So would you say, sprinkle it on Shabbat so that then at night you can burn the innards and you can cook and eat the rest of the meat on Saturday night, which is chol? No, that's two different categories. So that's why we do not apply it there. So good, we had an answer. Now we ask, lo amar? Is it true that if it's two different matters, two different categories, we do not apply it? Here's a case that proves the opposite. Even in two categories, it seems that we do apply the principle of amod chata and it's shekedesh tizkeh. V'hatanan, es Mishnah Masechet Terumot. Chavit shel teruma shenishbera begat ha'alyona u'batachtona holin temein. We have a barrel of teruma that broke in an upper vat of a press. Now, the teruma is tahor. It can be eaten by kohanim. Fine. Now it broke, and now it's spilling. There's a drain pipe, and it spills into a lower vat. But the lower vat already has cholin temein in it. So if you do nothing and let all that wine go from the upper to the lower, then all will get mixed up, and it will become teruma teme'ah. Now, teruma teme'ah, only kohanim can take it, and the kohanim cannot eat it. They could just burn it. And so we're ruining everything. We're ruining all the chulin, cannot be used. No one can drink it. And the teruma also is all ruined. So that's not a good situation. That's if we're passive and do nothing. So what should we do about this? Modeh Rabbi Eliezer v'Rabbi Yoshua. Shim yachol latzil mimena rebi'it b'tahara yasil. Rabbi Eliezer and Rabbi Yoshua have a machloket as we're about to see. But they agree that if you can save even one revi'it or more of the teruma, tahor wine, b'tahara. That means right over here, we have some vessels around here, but let's say these vessels are tameh. Now, we can get a tahor vessel, but it'll take a few minutes, and by that time, some of the wine will go into the lower vat and be ruined. But some will be ruined. What can we do? But if I go and get a vessel, a tahor vessel, I can catch some of the teruma that will be tahor. If you can do that, at least you can save some tahor teruma. Okay, that's good. You should do that. Ve'im lav, Rabbi Eliezer omer, tered v'titameh, v'al yitame'ena beyad. Rabbi Yoshua omer, af yitame'ena bayad. But if not, there's no tahor vessel around, there's no way I'm going to save, not even one revi'it. So now, here's my choice. Either I could be passive and let it all go down. I shouldn't do anything actively. It'll all get ruined. Or what I can do is I can receive all of the terumah into impure jugs. The terumah will all be ruined. It's true. But it's going to be ruined anyway. At least the chulin will be saved. And the chulin, then anybody could have the chulin. Why should we waste that good wine? So that's a machloket. Im lav Rabbi Eliezer omer tered v'titameh v'al yitameh bayad. Let it all go down and become tameh, and you should not actively do something to take terumah tehorah and make it tameh by putting a vessel there that's tameh. Rabbi Yoshua omer af yitameh bayad. Rabbi Yoshua says, no, we do. You can go and put a vessel there on purpose to catch all the terumah, even though you're making it tameh directly with your action. Why? Now you're doing a sin. You're not supposed to. You're not allowed to make terumah tameh. So you're doing a sin, but it's for the greater good because now you're saving the cholin. So we see, according to Rabbi Yoshua at least, you can sin, so kedesh etiskeh, even though these are two different items. You're sinning with the terumah to save the cholin. So what do you say about that? Since you see here, we can do it. No. Shane hatam de l'tumah ka'azla. There it's different because if you do nothing, like Rabbi Eliezer says, the terumah will still become tameh. So no matter what you do, the terumah is tameh. So write it off. Okay, now it's true, I'm doing it a little bit more directly. It's going to become tameh a second sooner than otherwise. That's true, but since it would become tameh anyway, we don't call that sin so that you benefit something else. It's going to happen anyway. So therefore, better to just get the benefit, even though I'm a little bit more involved actively in causing the tumah than if I just let it go by itself. Ki ata Rav Yitzchak taneh. When Rav Yitzchak came from Eretz Yisrael to Bavel, he taught the following baraita. Kibsei aseret sheshechatan shelo kemisvatan pesulin utubar suratan v'yesu lebeta serefa. You have sheep for shelamim, for Shavuot, and one did shechita not according to the mitzvah, something wrong. The Rishonim discussed what he did wrong. Was it the wrong intention? Was it the wrong year? How old the sheep was? Was it the wrong time? Okay, something or other that he did wrong, whatever it is. It's pasul. Now what are you going to do with it? Well, you wait till the form decays, meaning wait till the next day, it's notad, and then you take it out to be burnt, not on the mizbeach, but because it's invalid. Amar Rav Nachman, mor de makish lehu lechatat tane pesulim, tana debe levi de gamar shalme chova, mishalme nedava tane kesherim. Rav Nachman is going to explain the derivation of this law, and he says, this master, Rav Yitzchak, who taught this, because he compares the shelamim to this shelamim to a hatat. Where do we see that they're compared? Here in Vayikra 23:19. Says Vasitem seir izim echad lechatat u'shnei chabasim neshana lezebach shelamim. So these shelamim for Shavuot are compared to a chatat. Because a chatat, if you do it shelo lishmo or some other problem, it's going to be pasul, and the shalmeh kibsei aseret are juxtaposed in the same pasuk. Therefore, Rav Yitzchak taught pesulin. However, there's another opinion. The Tana, that's the professional memorizer in the school of Levi, he compared shalmeh chova to shalmeh nedava. And he said, shalmeh chova, that's shalmeh aseret or shalmeh chova, compared that to a shalamim that one gives as a voluntary offering. Now, if in a voluntary offering one made a similar mistake, it would be okay. And therefore, shalmeh chova, also if you make this mistake, it's kasher. And so in his version of the Braita, he says has the same Braita, but his reads, kesherin, they're perfectly okay. So we have a machloket between Rav Yitzchak's version of the Braita and the Tana of the house of Levi's version of the Braita, depending on whether they will compare the kibsei aseret to a hatat based on that pasuk, or, well, it's a shelamim, will compare the chovat to nedava of shelamim. The Tane Levi, ushar shamez nazir sheshechatan shelo kemisvatan kesherin. And we see that Levi has this opinion in the following teaching, where he says that a nazir who brings a shelamim offering, that's a chova, that's another type of shalmei chova. He has to bring that as part of his purification purification ritual. If he does shechita and he does something wrong with the shechita, Kesherin. Nevertheless, that animal will be valid as a shelamim. Velo alula be'alim l'shem chova. Although it does not fulfill the obligation of the nazir for his special shelamim that he has to bring. V'nechalin l'yom ve'layla ve'en teonin lo lechem velo zeroa. And it gets stringencies of both types of korbanot in that it can only be in for a day and a night. A regular shelamim, voluntary, can be in for a day, a night, and a day. But the shalmei nazir is only for a day and a night. So it has that stringency. But also, if it were a shalmei nazir, then you would bring special bread and you would wave the foreleg. But you don't do that either because it's not fulfilling the obligation for that. And so in that sense, it's treated as a regular shelamim. So we see that according to Levi, when you have a shalmei chova and you do something wrong, then it's still valid as a shalmei, because we compare it to a shalmei nedava. And so that would be true for the kibseh aseret as well. Metibe. Now we have a baraita which we bring to object to Rav Yitzchak's version. A baraita doesn't have a name. Asham ben shana vehebi ben shetayim ben shetayim vehebi ben shana pesulin. If you have to bring korban asham, sometimes you have to bring a 1-year-old asham, and instead he brought it a 2-year-old animal. Sometimes you have to bring a 2-year-old animal. Instead he brought a 1-year-old. Pisulin is no good. And you have to wait till it gets ruined. Till the next day, and then overnight, the next day you take it out to be burnt. Aval olat nazir veolat yoledet veolat mesora shayu bnei sheteh shanim ushchatan kesherin. However, if you have a korban olav that a nazir has to bring, or that a yoledet has to bring, or that a mesora has to bring, and they were 2 years old and instead of 1 year old, and you did shechita, still that korban is considered valid. Now, what's the difference between these? The Braita explains. Kelalo shel davar. Kol kasher beolat nedava, kasher beolat chova. V'chol pasur bechatat, pasul be'asham, chutz mishelo lishmo. Anything that would be kosher for a voluntary olah is kosher also for a olat chova. And if it was a olat nedava, then the 2-year-old would be okay, and therefore it's still kasher, even though these are all types of olat chova. They have to bring these things, and that's why in these cases they are kasher. However, regarding the other case, these first cases where these were the types of asham, so the rule there is that anything that is not good for a chatat will make it pasul. It will also make it a pasul for an asham, except for shelo lishmo. If you do shechita v'chatat shelo lishmo, it's no good pasul at all. But if you do an asham shelo lishmo, that will still be okay. But these other problems, like the wrong age, will be pasul. Now this is brought as a challenge against Rav Yitzchak because there is a pasuk here in Bemidbar that compares the olah to a chatat. And this we have this for a nazir, and we have similar things for the other types of korban olahs that are brought here. Olah nazir, olat yolet, olat mesora. There are pesukim that compare each of these olahs to a korban chatat. Now, what you see here is that even though they're juxtaposed side by side to a korban chatat, we ignore that. We don't say, if it's the same pasuk, therefore it must be no good, which is what Rav Yitzchak did. Rav Yitzchak said, it says the shelamim next to a chatat. Remember, it says that in this pasuk that says the shalmei aseret as compared to a chatat, and therefore pasul. But here they're also put back to back, and yet we don't say that they're pasul. Instead, what we do is we compare olat chova to olat nedava, which was what Levi did, and not Rav Yitzchak. So challenge against Rav Yitzchak, and the answer simply is Haitana Tana debe Levihu. This baraita, there was no author, so we will assign this baraita to be from the school of Levi, and that's why it's consistent with Levi, but it's not consistent with the school of Rav Yitzchak. So that answers the question according to Rav Yitzchak. Tashema detane Levi asham nazir ve'asham mesora shechatan shelo lishman kesherim ve'lo alu labe'alim l'shum chova shechatan mechusar zeman bib'alim o shayu bnei sheteh shanim ushchatan pesulin. Now we have another braita from the school of Levi that says that an asham nazir, asham mesora, that one did shechita, but with the intention for something else, they are valid, but it will not fulfill the obligation of the owner. However, if he did shechita when he was not yet ready, the nazir or the mesorah was not yet on the day that he can bring it, he brought it too early, or that it was 2 years old instead of one, it's supposed to be 1 year old, then it's pasul altogether. Now we ask about this. V'imita ligmad mishelamim. If Levi says, "Oh, you learn a chova from something that is nedava," so why not say the same thing here? Learn these asham. Asham is always going to be a chova. Why not learn it from shelamim, where if you made a similar mistake, it would be okay? And the answer simply is shelamim mishelamim gamad. Asham mishelamim lo gamad. Well, we'll learn shelamim from shelamim. That is shalmei chova. If you make some kind of mistake, and then it will have the same law as shalmei nedava. And so therefore, Levi compares those two. But we're not going to compare an asham to a shelamim. Okay, good answer. Okay, fine. I understand that you have to be the same type. So if you're going to learn one type of shelamim from another type, why not learn the law of one type of asham from another type of asham? And that will help us in the case where it's the wrong age. And we can say as follows: asham nazir v'asham mesorah me'asham gezelot v'asham me'ilot, or asham gezelot v'asham me'ilot me'asham nazir v'asham mesorah. Why not learn the law of a asham nazir and asham mesorah? Those two are supposed to be in their first year. So if you bring it in the second year instead, why not learn from Hashem Gezelot and Hashem Me'ilot, which are supposed to be in their second year? So those are valid in their second year, and therefore we should learn one type of Hashem from another type of Hashem. And even though the Hashem Nazir Mesorah should be 1 year old, well, we'll compare it to Hashem Gezelot, Hashem Me'ilot, which are okay if they're in their second year. Or Hashem Gezot and Hashem Meilot, which are supposed to be 2 years old, if one brings it in when they're 1 year old, we should say it's still okay because we should learn it from Hashem Nazir and Hashem Mesorah, where if you bring it in the first year, it's supposed to be in the first year and it's okay. So why not learn one type of Hashem from another type of Hashem? And therefore you'll say if you brought it in the wrong age, then it should be okay. אמר רב שימי ברש"י, דנין דבר שלא בהכשרו מדבר שלא בהכשרו, ואין דנין דבר שלא בהכשרו מדבר שבהכשרו. Rav Shimi Barashe answers that we will compare something that was done improperly to something else that was done improperly. In other words, you have shalmei atzeret, that you did improperly, and that's a chova. Okay, we'll learn from what if it was a shelamim, a voluntary shelamim, where you made the same problem, the same mistake. If it would be okay with nedava, so then it'll be okay with the chova. But in both of them is where you made a mistake. You did something wrong. So we have to learn a case of doing something wrong from another case of doing something wrong. We're not going to learn these two types of Hasham, where one of them is something that you did wrong and one of them is something that you did right. We're not going to learn from an Hasham that's supposed to be 1 year old, that now you brought it 2 years old. Oh, that should be okay because there's another type of Hasham that's supposed to be 2 years old. No, you can't learn from that. You can only learn two categories of the same type of Korban, Hasham or Shalom Shalamim, where in one category an error is okay, then the other category, an error is okay. Not where one of them is supposed to be like that. You can't learn to something else where it's not supposed to be like that. Velo, we question that assumption. V'hatanya minayin leyoseh shim Allah lo yered sharei yoseh kasher bebama. Wait, we have a braita that seems to contradict that, because it says, how do you know that if you have something that's consecrated that's supposed to be put on the mizbeach and burnt, and it left the temple courtyard. At that point, it's left the temple courtyard, it's invalid. Then you cannot put it on the korban, cannot put it on the mizbeach anymore. But bidi avad, what if you did bring it back into the courtyard and you put it on the mizbeach? Once it's up there, then it doesn't come down. Why do we say that? Because after all, something that leaves the courtyard, there is a situation where that was permitted, and that is when bamot were allowed. When bamot were allowed, then you could take bamot anywhere, and you could take all those, whatever you're burning on the bama, outside. So here you see, we're learning the law of something that you did wrong from a case of something where you were okay, you were permitted to do that. So you see, sometimes we do learn something that is shelo bechshero from something that is behechshero. And the answer to that is Tana azot Torah ta'olah riba samich le. No, this is not actually the bamot is not actually the derivation of this law. That's something that went outside the temple courtyard. You can still, if you put it on the mizbeach, you can leave it there. Rather, the real derivation is from a ribui. It says this is the law of the olah that it goes up. There's an extra phrase, and it's teaching that there are some things that you can put and leave on the mizbeach, even though they should not have been put there. Now, what does that include? To know what this ribui includes, we use a gilui milta something to give us a hint. We say, oh, well, bamot, that makes sense that since there's such a thing as bamot that can be taken outside, so this should be included in the ribui. But we're not actually learning it from there. We're actually learning it from the extra word, zot torat ha'olah. Baruch Adonai le'olam. Amen ve'amen.